You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show.
The 70% of people out there listening to the show today are going to need some level of care. It doesn't necessarily mean that 70% are going to end up in a nursing home, but 70% of people will need some assistance out there. The biggest fear is running out of money for the retiree, but what we see is not enough people spend enough of their money.
Cris prides himself in what matters to you. This is the Rite Retirement Show.
Hi there, I am Louann Fulmar, and you have tuned into the Rite Retirement Show. Today with us, sharing lots of wisdom about retirement, is certified financial planner, financial advisor, Cris Wallace. He's also president of his firm, WG Financial Group. Another wise man with us today, Graham Bauer, a certified financial planner, financial advisor, and an enrolled agent at the firm. Now, they're both here to help you plan smarter, retire stronger, and play, living your best life in retirement. Okay, so if you have any questions about what you hear on our show today, call or text the word VISIT. 256-937-2010 is the number for a complimentary discovery session. We'll be giving that out throughout our show. Remember to stay connected throughout the week. Just head to WG Financial Group 256 on Facebook for any visuals that you might need from our show or any retirement updates as well. And you can catch this show, the Rite Retirement Show, anytime, anywhere on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even at WGFinancialGroup.com. So excited to get started. Hello to you, Cris. Hello to you, Graham.
Hello, Louann. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Hey, Louann. How are you doing? Well, I guess Cris just asked you. You're doing good.
But I'll tell you too.
That's just my knee-jerk response, I guess.
I'm doing well for you too. How about that?
That's good. You're doing double good today.
Double good.
So apologies for last week, actually, to the listeners that follow us on Facebook. If you're not, check us out. I forgot to put out there that we were airing a rerun last week because we had no power and we couldn't do radio.
Well, that makes sense.
Apologize for that.
See? Yeah. I
So
think
anyway,
they're very forgiving.
I hope so. Some are, some aren't, I guess. So,
yeah.
But I'm glad to be back in the saddle, Louann.
I know, guys. Yeah, I missed you. I feel like all of January is already gone, and here we are starting February, and I haven't talked to you much this year.
It's gone. And if you look at February on your calendar, it's like the perfect month because it's like perfectly square. Because it's 28 days.
It starts on a Monday.
March
March 1st ends up being on. No.
Ends March 1st or February 1st was a Sunday.
You're right. Yeah. So wow,
it's perfect.
Is it
like
perfect?
if you look at it on your calendar, it's perfect.
I'm going to. Now that you said that, we're all going to
you
check
learn
our
all kind
calendars.
you learn all kind of things on the radio show. We tell you all kind of cool things.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure there's a more scientific reason why February is 28 days long, but I appreciate that one of the worst weather months of the year is the shortest month of the year.
I agree.
If they had peeled off 3 days from June or something to give it to February, I don't think anybody north of the equator would like that, at least.
I think that the current administration has done a lot of good things with like the tax code and stuff like that. But the one thing, and I know you know what I'm going to say, Graham, the one thing I wish that they would do and quit, messing around with it is get rid of the daylight hour where you lose an hour.
Daylight savings
I thought they were going to do it. And then what happened?
They chickened out. Why don't they just do that?
Yeah. Well, so someone can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think from what I've read, technically we're in the correct time right now, and the extra hour is what daylight savings time is. So I would prefer that we just stay in that extra hour. So I think if they got rid of it, we would be in this time all year.
I think you're right.
Let me say it like my country boy Georgia self wants to say it. I don't want to get in dark at 4:30.
I agree.
I need to get in dark later.
Yeah. I don't.
Yesterday, Emma was like, man, I'm just so tired, after work. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And she's like, I don't know why that is. And I'm like, it's because it's dark at 5 p.m.
Dark.
Like you get done with work and the day feels like it's over, even though you got a couple hours left. It's just
I agree.
Gloomy and raining.
I like it when we manipulate the time. Can we just change it to that? I like that better. I think we all like that better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's been a lot going on. Oh my gosh, in the news. And so let's talk about that, about how that's affected the markets. Can you guys give us a market update, please?
Yeah, just a quick market little blurb here. Through the year to date, it's been relatively flat. I think the S&P is only up about 0.5% at this point. We've seen a lot of volatility in commodities. We saw silver and gold kind of sounds like a Christmas tune, silver and gold.
Yeah.
We saw that. I will not sing, by the way. I will talk all day on the radio, but I ain't singing. We saw some volatility with silver and gold this month as well. But, right now, kind of flat. Fed's held rates steady, so no surprise there. And as of right now, the forecaster, and I think it's in March is when their next meeting is. Right now, the forecaster is saying it's going to hold steady again. I think the thing we're going to be watching as we move into the future is Powell's term is up in May, and it's going to be interesting to see who President Trump elects to that position.
I know.
It's my understanding that Trump has basically said, in order to have this role, you must be on board with lowering interest rates. And so watching that whole battle play out will be interesting for sure. But market's kind of flat, nothing exciting right now.
Right.
So March is Powell's last meeting, right?
It is.
Is it?
It'll be his last one.
Okay.
End of an era, right? Has he been in there for how long has his term been? Has it been
Well, he
years?
appointed him.
16 or 17.
Yeah, it was
maybe.
early in the first Trump administration.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's the funny part.
Is it 10 years?
Well, 4 and 4 would be 10. I mean, 8.
But 2016 was 10 years ago now.
Yeah, but that's the funny part is Trump actually appointed him. That's the funny part.
All those years ago. Yeah, I've heard, I know that there's some murmurings of who it's going to be, but they haven't officially announced it. I've heard like Kevin Warsh is maybe the front runner. I think there was he might be the Vanguard guy. There's a few different people, but that'll be interesting because all that news is going to be coming out, pretty soon.
I mean,
now,
we're talking weeks.
Clock is ticking.
It was 2017. I just, checked this out.
2017.
Yeah.
Confirmed in January, 18, appointed in 17.
There you go. Okay.
Late 17.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
that'll be an interesting watch for sure. We'll
very
see what
much
happens
so.
there.
Yeah. I know Trump can't wait to get somebody else in there. So let's talk now about things going on federally. Do you have a federal minute for us, please?
Yeah, one thing I just kind of wanted to give people a reminder of is I've been seeing it a lot recently, and this is one of those federal minutes that this applies to a lot of people, not if you're just federal, but I'll talk about it specifically kind of in the TSP lens. Recently, I've been seeing increasing amount of people using almost exclusively target date funds. And I don't think that's always necessarily the worst thing in the world. Like I've told people many times, if you're a 20-year-old federal employee, I'd much rather you use a target date fund than put everything in G fund. But I think specifically when you get closer to retirement, it's just worth kind of, evaluating a little bit more how these funds, talking about the L funds, the L2040, the L2035, 2030, that a lot of pre-retirees and retirees are using. They just get a lot more conservative over time. And conventional wisdom, of course, would tell you that you should. But the reality is, it really depends on your situation. It's not a one size fits all thing. So there are some folks that I've talked to that, they aren't really going to be touching their TSP for a while. Maybe they have another spouse that's still working and, they've just been leaving it in the 2030 for years. And now it's getting really, really conservative when they actually kind of have a longer time horizon for their money. Or maybe their TSP is a little smaller and it's mostly Roth and they have other assets, other places. There's a lot of different scenarios. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're somebody who is in that pre-retiree range, maybe recently into retirement, you took a DRP and you're kind of wondering, hey, is my TSP allocated the way it should be? I kind of just put it in this target date fund a long time ago and left it alone. Probably a good time to kind of reevaluate it and see, hey, maybe if this made sense 10 years ago or 15 years ago, does it still make sense today?
Yeah. So good. Yeah. Good information there.
I think also just on that note, you have to also pay attention to the mix. I mean, and look at, how the target date fund actually has you allocated. I think it's great for people that don't really know what to do, and they're just like, I don't have, and they don't have anybody. They don't talk to people like us. I think a target date fund kind of works, but I think looking at the mix is really important. The reason I say that is right now, currently in the 2030, the 37%, 37.3% is actually in the G fund. 5.6 is in the F fund. F is in Frank. Now F is your fixed income fund. So that's kind of like your aggregate bond index. But there's about 20% in the I fund. And I know that past performance doesn't always predict future results. And I get all that. But, the I fund and the TSP really over the last decade really hasn't done a lot. And so here we are sitting in the 2030 with about 20% still in the I fund. And if you look at the 2030 just in general, it's 2026. So if you're planning to retire, let's say in 2030, well, that's only 4 years away. So you're inside the 10-yard line at this point if we're playing football. And at this point, if I look at the equity mix within the 2030 fund, we've got 20% in the I fund, as I noted. We've got roughly 30 in the C fund, and we still got another 7.5 inside of the S fund. So that tells me you're, pretty close to a 60-40 at that point. We would consider that more of a moderate, kind of tilting maybe more towards moderate to moderate aggressive at that point. In a downturn of a market, that fund might lose 22, 23% in a pretty big downturn. So you do want to be careful and understand what's inside of the fund, how it's allocated. And I think, to what Graham's point here is it's not always the greatest. I think it works in a pinch and for somebody that doesn't know what they're kind of doing with investments, but just pay attention, I guess is the message here.
Mm-hmm. So now let's move into something you guys wanted to talk about. And I'm so glad you do. I think a lot of people want to understand this. And that is the 529 college savings plans. So it's a good way to save on taxes. Explain that to us, please.
Yeah, there's some really interesting tools out there. And specifically in the last couple of years, I think the landscape of college savings has changed actually a good bit based on some recent law changes. And, Cris, you're totally right. When I'm sitting down with clients, we're doing reviews. Once we've kind of, ironed out some of their retirement planning, their long-term plan, a lot of times they're thinking about, hey, well, I'm probably not going to spend all of this money in my lifetime. Just our average client is probably underspending a little bit, despite our best efforts to get them to spend more. And so they're like, well, maybe how do I set up either my kids or my grandkids in a lot of cases to have some college savings money, maybe have a little money to buy a first home or different things like that. So the 529 account is kind of my go-to as a starting point. And, I'm not going to go into like all the details of how everything works with the 529. I think one of the most interesting law changes that's happened with the 529 though, is the fact that now after there's been the same beneficiary for 15 years on the account, you can start rolling money tax-free out from the 529 to a Roth IRA in the grandchild's name or the child's name. So, take it for example, your grandchild is 2 years old and you want to start college savings and you put a couple thousand in, and when they're 18, they have $25,000 in a 529 and they go to trade school for welding and they never go to college and they're making great money, but they never went to school and they didn't need to use it for trade school or whatnot. You can actually start rolling out up to the annual maximum, which is this year's $7,500, to a Roth IRA. And there's a lifetime maximum, which is $35,000 that can come out of there. So if you're just starting out and you're saying, hey, we really just want to put a little money aside, maybe you're doing $300 a month. Well, I guess that's a little bit more, but $100 a month, $50 a month, whatever it is. I think that's a really good place to start because it will grow over time and they can either A, use that money tax-free for college expenses if they go to college, or B, as long as you don't get too much in there, they can start rolling that out after 15 years into Roth IRA. So tax-free growth in the 529 and then tax-free growth once it's in the Roth as well. So I think that's a really great tool. It's also, in my opinion, a decent way to get around the fact that, despite what a lot of people, say online, it is a little bit dicey to try to say that your, 2-year-old child has earned income so you can contribute to their Roth IRA. I mean, some people do that and say, oh, they're modeling or something like that. And that might be okay in certain situations, but they're most likely not going to be working a full-time job at 3 years old, but you can still put money in that 529 that could get rolled out to a Roth, even if you're not worried about the college saving element of things. So that's kind of the basics that, there's a laundry list of different things you can use a 529 for, but that's where I like to start. And in the state of Alabama, you get a little state tax deduction if you do it through the state as well. So, you put money in there, saves you a little bit on state taxes, no federal tax savings, but you're kind of starting a tax-free growth account that could either be used for college expenses or retirement as long as you don't overfund the account.
Yeah. Graham, what you mentioned here, I just want to make note of it again, is when you do that rollover, there is no federal tax liability.
Correct.
So that's kind of nice. But you are maxed out at $35,000. And essentially you have to do it over about 5 years because you can only convert over up to the annual contribution limit of what is in that year. So like you said, for this year, it's $7,500. So you'd have a little less than 5 years of rollover money for $35,000. I think that's an excellent way to kind of put money away for the grandkids' college, or it could be the kids' college. It doesn't have to be the grandkids' college. We're talking about pre-retiree, retiree most of the time on the show, but I think it's an excellent secondary source because knowing that you can roll that out to a Roth later on, you can put money in there with that intention. And with a normal Roth IRA, you have to have earned income to be able to contribute. So this is a way to kind of put money towards education, and then you can roll it over. One key note here, Graham, and I didn't know if you covered this or not, but you mentioned the beneficiary on the 529 has to be in place for 15 years. If you change beneficiaries, then that 15-year clock restarts. So whoever you want to potentially have this Roth IRA, you just want to make sure that that you're leaving that beneficiary on there for 15 years.
Yeah. And, I think a couple other things to note about that. I think the tax law on this was a little bit gray, but I think that you do have to have earned income to do that 529 to Roth transfer. So if your grandchild is 18 and they're not working at all, I don't know that you'll be able to do it until they have earned income because it's considered a contribution, not a conversion to the Roth, which technicality, but that's kind of a little bit of a stipulation there. But, even so, because of its contribution status, even if you were saying, hey, I don't really care if they're saving for retirement, which you should, that's great that they are, but I want them to just, buy a car or something like that. With its contribution status, money could technically get withdrawn once it's in the Roth as well. Not that we would be encouraging that, but, technically would be an option. So I think that again, like I said, that's the place I would start out. Like if someone came in today and they said, hey, I want to put $100,000 today towards my kid's college education, I wouldn't tell you to necessarily dump all of that into a 529. But most grandparents that I talk to are wanting to start with $1,000 a year, $2,000 a year, $200 a month, just different smaller amounts like that.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know. I think it's a great way. I think it's an often overlooked way that you don't really think about because you think about 529 strictly as education, but it also can be used as a way to convert money. And you said 18, probably have to have a job. The little gray there. At 18, your butt better have a job. That's what I say.
I mean, you only got to make $7,500 a year. So that's like working 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week. Maybe.
You live in my house, you're going to have a job. That's what I say. So, all right. So good stuff there, Graham. That's awesome. I think that's an excellent thing for people to think about. And just kind of on that note, there's some other ways to get money. So we're all aware of gifting, the gift limits that are in place on the annual gift tax exclusion. So I've seen situations before where a parent will want to, give money to a child. And one of the greatest things to do, I think, if the situation is right, so I'm going to cover that. One, you're probably not going to want to do this with an 18 or 20-year-old child that's in college because you're going to have to deal with the kiddie tax rules. But let's just say you've got a family member, I don't know, maybe they're starting out, maybe the couple, your son or daughter's married, they're 27. Income's pretty low because they're just starting out. They're in that phase of life where their income's not high, and you want to give them some money. Well, one of the strategies that can be used here is you can gift some of your appreciated stock to them. Now, try to track with me here on the radio, but the basis, what you paid for, the parent paid for the stock, goes and travels to the kid. But the kid can then sell the stock at some of it might be at 0% capital gains, and maybe a little bit might be at 15% capital gains. But that situation works well where you're trying to gift money to a child, is gift away some of that appreciated stock, let them sell it at a lower tax rate than maybe you could sell it. And what that does is that gets rid of your tax liability. And kind of my mind is if I'm giving money to one of my kids or something like that, and they got to pay a little bit of tax on it, hey man, they didn't earn it anyway. So, I'm kind of giving it to them. So I'm going to talk about giving away some of my appreciated stock in that case. So it works that way too. That's another like gifting strategy that you can think about with your kids. Again, probably not something you want to do for an underage kid. especially I would probably use it for just to make sure I'm completely clear of the kiddie tax rules. I'd probably want to use it for somebody who's 24 or older at that point, just to make sure I'm outside of that. So just some gifting stuff we want to talk about today.
Yeah, very good.
And I think that's a great thing to do as well, because a lot of times people get really caught up on the gift tax thing because it sounds so scary on the surface. But for the average person, it's like, hey, do you have a $30 million net worth?
Mm-hmm.
If you check the no box, then you don't have to worry about that quite so much. Now you do have to have some tax filing forms and all that, and the lifetime exclusion. There's a little more administrative side that goes into doing that. That's probably easier to just stay under it. But in some cases, I've had people that have said, hey, kids are buying their first house. We want to gift them some stock. We want to gift them this, that, or the other, but we don't want to pay gift taxes. And it's like, well, if you have a $500,000 net worth, $1 million net worth, you're not going to pay gift taxes on a gift. You'd have to gift them 15 million or 30 million if you're married. So for most people, that's not going to be a huge issue. And it's a great way to, say, if you're not going to probably spend all your money in your lifetime, why would you rather your kids inherit it when you're dead than get to see them enjoy it and help them out when they're in that stage of life where they probably need it a little bit more? Because what we see internally, like, maybe contrary to popular belief, a lot of our retiree clients are getting inheritances right around that time. You know, most inheritances don't come when you're 30 or 40 years old. They come when you're like 50 and 60, which is
retired
when you're retired or just more financially stable. So I see, I was talking to, just to give you guys, the listeners, a bit of an example. I was talking to a couple of clients recently, and they were telling me how they had helped both of their kids back in like 2018, 2019, I think, have with the down payment for their first home.
Aww.
And they got like a 2% something or low 3% interest rate, and their home value was doubled in that time. And I was like, hey, that, $20,000, $30,000 you gave them, whatever, like that is the most valuable gift you could have given them. They got a low interest rate. They got a ton of home equity. Now they're set up great. And it's not like you had to give them $1 million to do that. So just because of the time with them being younger, I think, that can be really, really beneficial. And we have a lot of clients that have kids in their 20s and 30s that,
for sure,
could definitely probably use it more today than they will when they're 60.
So I want to circle back on the whole gift tax thing that we talked about, just to make sure that was clear, because we talked about a lot there. So currently in 2026, you can gift away $19,000 without having to file any paperwork. So the paperwork comes into play is when you gift away more than that. And I think it's gift tax 709 that you have to fill out and file. So what Graham is talking about here is, even if let's just use a round number of 50,000. So we know that we can do 19 without any paperwork. Well, we're going to gift 50. So the differential between 50 and 19 is what will go on 709, because you get the first 19, basically for free. And the differential between 50 and 19 goes on gift tax form 709. And that amount is then subtracted essentially from your lifetime gifting amount that you can do, which, to Graham's point here, is nearly 30 million between a married couple at this point. So if you don't have that type of net worth, it really doesn't matter. But you don't pay any tax on the gift there. Okay. So let's take it a step further. Let's say you use my strategy. I've got some whatever stock that's, now valued at a higher, I've got capital gains, say for example, but I'm going to give away $50,000 of that to my child. Now if they turn around and sell it, will have to pay capital gains taxes on that, because my basis will follow through with the gift, but still I didn't pay the tax on it. My kids paid the tax on it. So I think sometimes there's some confusion around gifting. At the office, a lot of the people that come see us are givers. So that is one of the things we talk about, is how do we maximize giving, both to your charities? How do we do it for the kids? When we're building out our financial plan through the Rite Retirement process, we're looking heavily into the efficiency side of things, especially through a tax lens on how we can gift things accordingly. And most efficiently, as a matter of fact. So one last thing here, as we kind of get towards the end of the first half of the show, I want to talk just briefly about the Trump accounts. So Graham, if you want to start us off there on the Trump accounts, because that's been in the news a lot lately.
Yes. Yeah. And this is a new thing. Obviously, this was part of the OBBB bill. And it's a new type of, really, a savings account for minors. Now, here's what I would encourage everybody to do. If you've had a grandchild or a child born but from 2025 to now, or you have one that's going to be born between, I think, now and 2029, I want to say 28 or 29.
Yeah.
Government will give you $3,000 into that Trump account. So you might as well take advantage of that. And I think I read something the other day that depending on where you set it up, maybe it was like Bank of America is doing another amount too. So there's different places where you might be able to get even more kind of free money for setting it up. The way I would think about this account from a tax perspective is once they turn 18, it basically turns into a traditional IRA that they waive the 10% penalty if you use it for certain things like college, first car, home business, startup
business, right?
So where I think this is an interesting planning tool is if you've really maximized that 529 and you're like, hey, I just don't want to get a bunch of money stuck in a 529 that I can't use for anything without penalty and income taxes. Then you might say, okay, well, maybe we look at these because the cool thing about them is you can convert some of that money once they're 18 to a Roth IRA. Now you'd pay the taxes to do that and you'd have to pay those from an outside source, but you could get money into Roth status after paying some taxes. And you can do that, without them having to have earned income, which is kind of a cool thing as well. So there's some use cases for them. I would say that again, like I think the 529s, if you're just starting out, is a better option overall. But if there's free money out there, go take advantage of the free money. I mean, my sister's going to have her first baby later this year. That's the first child in, my side of the family in a while. And now I've already told them, I'm like, hey, set up that account once their baby's born and get the 3,000 and, set it up here and get the extra money too. So I don't see why you wouldn't take advantage of that. And then maybe if you get to the point, if you've really maximized the 529, it could be a good option to look back on and say, hey, maybe we put a little bit more in this and plan on converting it later or something like that.
So as we near the end of the first half of the show, if you had to pick, Graham, outside of the $1,000 seed that the government would give you, let's just throw that away, and you can put money into a Trump account or a 529. Which one are you doing?
I'm doing a 529 until I get above that $35,000 lifetime limit.
Yeah.
That's what I tell most people to do, just because you can get tax-free growth until they're old enough to start moving it to a Roth, and then you can move it to a Roth tax-free, and then it grows tax-free again in the Roth. So potentially you could have money that you put in when a child was a baby or 1 year old growing tax-free until they're 60 years old without them having to have earned income, or 70 years old, which I think is kind of a no-brainer if you want to do some savings. But I have also seen people who have $150,000 stuck in a 529 account. So you don't want to just dump the farm in there. So there's a balance, and that's why it's a kind of a complicated thing, but there's use cases for both of them for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is why, people end up calling us, is the depth. I mean, we've gone over a lot of stuff here in the first 30 minutes of the show. And this is the kind of engagement when somebody sits down with us is, I think the way that most people view financial advisors is they just, they manage my money. I think it's the easy thing. Oh, they manage money, they charge a fee. But I know when you come into WG Financial Group and you sit down with one of our advisors, it's a different, deeper, more engaged conversation in a lot of different areas of financial planning. So if you are considering, looking at working with somebody in retirement, we'd love the opportunity to sit down and have you interview us and really have us interview you too, to make sure that we're a good fit for one another. If we are, we'll talk about what that looks like to work together. And you can call us at 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010. If you're catching the show on the way to church, you're probably listening to the 30-minute show. You can hop out to Apple Podcast, Spotify, catch the full show on those programs just by searching the Rite Retirement Show. You can do that again by hopping out to Apple Podcasts or Spotify on those platforms. Search RITE, Rite Retirement Show, and catch the whole episode.
When headlines sound dramatic and markets appear restless, having a plan in place matters. Joining forces with Cris Wallace could offer fresh perspectives on how to adapt your approach while staying focused on long-term goals. Text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Explore how steady guidance makes a difference.
Are you a federal employee feeling pressure from the early retirement offers like VERA, VSIP, or the Deferred Resignation Program? Recent government initiatives have introduced significant changes to federal retirement programs, making employees feel pressured to consider early retirement or face potential layoffs. At WG Financial Group, we help guide federal employees through these uncertain times. Our team understands the complex federal retirement systems and can help you make informed decisions. Call 256-937-2010 to schedule your complimentary discovery session with us today. We'll help you assess your options and create a personalized retirement plan to help you feel more confident. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 256-937-2010 to book your session. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Planning for retirement often sparks big questions, like how to make your savings last or what steps you should take next. Instead of stressing, why not get clear direction with a personalized meeting? Text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Connect with Cris Wallace and discover the next chapter of your financial story.
And we thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Rite Retirement Show. I'm Louann Fulmar, here with Cris Wallace and Graham Bauer, both of WG Financial Group. Okay, so guys, there was a recent global study. I always like to bring up some studies that found that fewer and fewer people are feeling optimistic about their retirement. And get this, just over 30% of people believe that they're going to live as well or better in retirement as they did while working. So that means, 70% don't think they will. So that's a major drop in confidence. Now, is this just a feeling or should we consider this a new retirement reality?
I think for some people, it might be a reality, just because I don't think people are saving as much as they should. I really don't. We run into a lot of people. I talk to people at the gym sometimes, like, what do you do? Well, I'm a financial advisor. It's like, oh boy, I shouldn't have told them that. Because here come the questions. So, and I love to talk about it. So I don't mind helping out. But I think the reality is right now, we all have what we call recency bias. So we remember things that have happened more recently. So right now, inflation is a concern. And we've watched it trickle down and come down and kind of flatten off. And it's not really where the Feds want it at the target. So, with higher inflation, people that retired in 2022, 2023, they were, they retired. Everything was great, but congratulations, your retirement is now more expensive because inflation kind of jumped up as well. So you're buying a lot more, you're saving a lot less. There's a lot more uncertainty about the future when inflation is kind of bouncing around. And then secondly, we're kind of living longer. I mean, the data's there. We're living longer. I know people say, average age is 78. And it is for a newborn. It is. And that's the thing that people have to remember is when you use the word or you toss around the longevity, average age of death is 78, you're talking about from a newborn baby, newborn baby boy and baby girl. You're not talking about somebody that's 65 years old. At that point, you're kind of in your mid 80s for both men and women at that point. And frankly, there's something like a 40% chance one of you sees the age of 90. So when you think about the average age, don't think 78. That's just not a good age for you to kind of benchmark off of. Mm-hmm. So we're living longer. And then some of the guarantees are gone, Louann. We've talked about it on the show a number of times, like pensions, like those defined benefit plans. They don't exist anymore because they're very expensive for a company to have as a benefit for the employee. There's also obligations, like the company has to sign up to funding X number of dollars for X number of years, and they're on the hook. And so when you set up a DC plan, a defined contribution plan, which is a 401k or a TSP type plan, the employer, they may offer a match, but they really don't have to. They don't have to match technically. And really the savings responsibility then falls on that of the employee. And I think that's where we're seeing things kind of shift a little bit in the retirement landscape is I don't think enough people are saving like they should. And I can say probably, feedback over my career that I've heard is thank you for telling me to put more in my 401k. Now, I didn't get paid for that. That's their retirement plan with their employer. All I did was encourage them and kind of nudge them to put a little bit more in there because I recognize the value. I have one at the company. Graham is a part of ours here at WG. there's value in putting money in that because I don't ever see it. I don't ever touch it. It goes out payroll deduct, goes in an account. Yes, I can take a loan or a hardship withdrawal, but it's paperwork and it's kind of hard to get to. So I love those retirement savings plans like 401ks. But those are kind of the things that I think, as you talked about, people are like becoming less and less confident.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a lot of it, I noted it at first, was just the high cost of goods and services today. And you kind of think, well, shoot, it no matter what I do, I can't keep up with it. I can't save enough. I was talking with my daughter the other day, and she likes to go to this little place in town and get these little, they're not energy drinks, but they're kind of like, I don't want to even say the name on the air because it's, a company. I don't want to throw a company out like that, but, it's just a little, like, kind of like a shake, almost like a protein shake.
Like a protein shake.
Like, what are those, like
a juice
what are
stuff.
those places called? I know what you're talking about. Like a kind of like a,
it's like a smoothie shop.
Drink
yes.
There's
exactly.
a name for it. I can't remember.
Yeah, but those things are like $8, $9.
Yes,
and I'm like, Ellery, like, you can't do that. Like, you don't make the money to be able to do that right now. And so those are, Daddy will buy that for you every now and then, but not every day. Daddy can't afford every day like that. So yeah, just things are expensive. And I think the younger generation, Graham, your generation, my son's generation, and y'all are getting crushed right now because you're trying to get that career going. You're hard workers and you're out there, busting your tail. But the money hasn't gotten there yet. And it's just hard to live and hard to buy a house with interest rates in the 6s right now. Yeah. So, I'm glad I'm old. Some days I'm glad I'm old. Right. Yeah.
Not when we feel it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I still got the back problems, and I'm not even old.
No.
Get out of here, man!
Old person's back.
Get out of here.
But
Graham.
no, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's like if you're in that retiree range. I mean, in the last 5 years, I mean, it's been pretty historic inflation. If we're looking, I mean, at the history of the U.S., it's probably not been quite as bad as the 1970s, but
not quite.
Like second to that, I mean, it's in recent memory, it's definitely been a really, bad run here. So if you're, I'm not old enough to be reminiscing about the good old days. And I already sometimes look at the gas pump or a certain price that I remember and be like, man, I used to get that for $1.49. My grandpas would tell me they used to get a burger for 25 cents for the drink back in the day. Right. And I've already started doing that with things. So, I mean, when you get those high inflation periods, it does get a lot easier to kind of get in that doom and gloom mindset of like, man, well, if this happens every 5 years, I'm not going to be able to afford anything. And it's like, you're probably right about that. The good news is, hopefully barring, anything really bad, that shouldn't be a normal for us. But I can totally understand that. I mean, it's hard on the young folks and it's hard on the retirees that, just like, man, is this going to keep happening forever? And is the $12 cheeseburger going to be the $30 cheeseburger in a couple of years?
Right. And then, you can't afford that.
Yeah. You talked about historic inflation. So while it hasn't been historic, I think it felt historic because if you just look at the data from 2022 backwards to like say 08, 09, where we were under the ZIRP policy, zero interest rate policy, there was virtually no inflation measurable by, things went up, don't get me wrong. And people are like throwing things at the radio right now. Yes, it did, Chris, you're lying. It did. It did. But if you look at the way things have gone up since 2022, it's measurably different. And I kind of liken it to, like, we just had this really cold snap here in Huntsville. And I run my temperature on 68 at the house, and people are probably thinking that's too hot. I run mine on 65, Chris. How do you afford heat? Well, I run mine on 68. But I can tell you that after walking outside when it's 10 and I walk into my 68 degree house, it feels like it's a sauna.
It was nice.
Yes. And so I think when we think about how inflation was from, pre-2022 to what it is now, it feels historic. Plus, like a lot of our listeners and millennials and Gen Z and Gen X, me, like I don't really remember too much. It's just like study book remembering about the later 70s and the 80s. So this feels a lot to me. Like when I go buy groceries, I can't walk out of the grocery store right now. 4 or 5 items is like $60. Yeah. Where used to it was like maybe 25 or 30, maybe.
Yeah. It's been, it's been on certain, it hasn't been on everything, but it's been on a lot of a lot of the essentials like the food and the gas and the
beef.
mortgage payments. Yeah, the beef.
Steak and burgers.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite.
And so it's just been, I think you're right though, because I can remember like I wasn't paying a ton of attention to prices for a long time, but I remember for a good portion of my life, maybe a 10-year stretch, it felt like you could pretty much go to any gas station and gas was like a little under $2. And it was kind of floating around there for like a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the big spike, a lot of price movements. So if anything, I agree with you. It's obviously not as bad as the 70s, but for a lot of people, since we went so long without one of those big inflationary periods, it feels a lot worse. But I guess, the encouragement you could give to the person really worried about that is, even if you look at the 70s, like a worse period of inflation, that didn't continue for another 30 years after that period. So, as we kind of transition back into, slightly lower rate environment, as long as inflation stays down, that shouldn't be just a normal for the rest of time.
Yeah, I'll give you another reference point here. The fast food restaurant that has sold billions of burgers. I won't say the name, but they're kind of, they're golden red. Let's just say it that way. And they're everywhere. In 2008, 2009, the hamburger was about 89 cents to $1. In 2012, it was still about $1. In 2013 and 14, and this is information I've just kind of pulled online while we were talking through this. 2014, $1. 2015 to 18, it was from $1 to $1.50. Now let's skip ahead to current, and it's $2.50 to $3. So the price of a hamburger, really since 2018, let's call it, has doubled in price. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, thankfully, I don't eat a lot of these. I will in a pinch, and sometimes they bring back the childhood because I lived off of these burgers and pizza in my 20s.
Oh my!
So sometimes you get a hankering for these burgers. But the point is, I think younger individuals don't have a reference point, and this is really painful. But the reality is things have gone up considerably, especially when we talk about, especially ground beef steaks, things like that. So,
and those years that it wasn't going up in price, they were shrinking in size.
I could go on and on about that. But it's like Christmas, like they talk about these little Christmas tree cakes at Christmas that become the hot thing to buy at the store. Yeah, man, those things have gotten pretty small. I'm like one bite, I can eat the whole thing. I remember my grandmother used to buy them. Yeah, they were a lot larger. For sure.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, right? But I mean, I think it's, again, like we've been saying, the encouragement would be that, unfortunately, those prices are going to be sticky, so it's not going back to those prices. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, that's, historically speaking, should not be just the new normal for the rest of your retirement. So as long as you, today understand where your spending is at, and have made a plan, and know what you need to live on and can live on that. Everybody's situation is totally different. We talked about rules of thumb a couple shows ago, and you hear a rule of thumb like 10 times your income or anything like that, and all of those are not really the case. It's just going to depend on your exact situation. So you can't just look at one thing, whether that's inflation, whether that's your portfolio, your social security check, any of those, and say, hey, well, that is what I have to determine my entire retirement on. It's like, you got to look at all of it and see, where it all fits in.
I think that's a good segue kind of into the next topic that we're going to talk about, where really the older rules don't apply. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? Well, developing a plan creates some confidence by having some clarity. And so I think working with someone, I always like to say it this way: if it's not us, then find somebody that you can trust and you can sit down with, that has a team of people that really specialize in retirement. And really, I won't say specialize, I'll say have a focus in retirement to really help you and your family develop a clear plan moving forward, so that you can gain a little bit of confidence there. And I think there's some psychological factors, Graham, I just want to touch on real quick that people go through when they retire. They start to really struggle with things. And I'll kind of start us with just like the loss of identity. I think that's number one. I know that I place a lot of identity in my job. It's what I do. I love it. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And the time when I go to retire years down the road from now, there will be a loss of identity for Cris. I've got to find a new identity. And frankly, let me just say full disclosure. I don't think it's healthy putting your identity in your job, but it's just kind of what we do because we spend so many hours per day at our job. So there's the identity loss. Graham, you can probably name a couple more that we talked about kind of pre-show from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on one of them a minute ago, but just a general anxiety around your portfolio and make that turning into like an anxiety about spending. It is so unbelievably common that somebody comes into the office and they've been a client for a little while and we're doing a review. Probably the most common thing I say to people, if I had to just plot everything on a graph, would be, hey, there's room to spend a little bit more money. Yeah. If there's some extra things you want to do. I'm sure anyone that's sat down in a meeting and talked to me is probably really sick and tired of hearing me say that. But people need that reminder because, in bad markets especially, but even in good markets, I mean, the inverse can be true, right? In a bad market, you can be like, hey, well, portfolio's down. I really shouldn't touch it. I should just wait for it to fully bounce back to its all-time high before I touch it. And then on the flip side, you can look at it and say, hey, well, it's doing really well. I shouldn't touch it because it's growing right now and I should just let it grow. You see both sides of that where people, don't want to spend because they're scared or don't want to spend because they want it to make a little bit more. And at the end of the day, I mean, you can't take it with you. And I think that's the big thing that we try to remind people. So when it comes to kind of going from the accumulation phase to that distribution phase, it's really important that you try to make memories with your loved ones, have giving goals if that's something that you do, legacy goals if that's something that's important to you, and then figure out, hey, what do we really want the ultimate purpose of this money to be? Because I think it's just really easy to fall into that mindset of, well, I got $4,000 a month coming in between our social securities and that's all I should spend. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You got this money out here, and if you don't touch it today, the IRS is just going to force it out to you when RMDs come along, and you're going to be older then, and you're going to be more tired then, and you're not going to want to do as much then, and you're not going to want to travel as much then, and you might be in a higher tax bracket. Might as well spend a little bit more money today because it's coming out either way, someday. So I think that's important to remember, that anxiety about spending, anxiety about your portfolio. You just really see that a lot.
Yeah, I want to dovetail off that into a couple of stories because of what you just said will kind of allow me to do that with a couple of stories of people that I've sat down with. So in the first part of the show, we talked about giving, and doing some charitable not necessarily charitable giving, but gifting to your family and ways to do that. So I was sitting down with someone last week actually, and talking about spending more of your money and what we call it going out and play and retire play. It's what we've trademarked. And then in this particular situation, when I was talking to this individual, she said to me in the meeting that what she remembered the most from her dad was the vacation trips. So I stopped the meeting right there, paused it, and said, okay, I want to unpack that a little bit. And I want to share with you our methodology here at the office, which is spend more of your money, make those memories, as opposed to dying with a casket full of money and trying to give that away. You never get to experience that. And the way that I feel when I take my family on a trip or we go on a vacation together, there's something fulfilling inside of me. And I love the way that it makes me feel to be able to do that for my family. But on the recipient side, so going back to this individual, she remembered that. And she told me a story that, and I may get bits and pieces of this wrong, but I'm going to try to put it together like she told me. I believe her father had ALS is what ultimately happened. And so with ALS, it's debilitating. And so she was describing to me kind of her father's situation. And it came to a point where he really couldn't move anything. And he had like a trach in, and he could kind of decide when ultimately he kind of wanted to pass away, is the way that she described it to me. And on the day that he decided to say, this is kind of it for me, while they waited on the doctor to arrive, because I think they had to call the doctor and the doctor was in a surgery or something like that. And then they were waiting on him to arrive. What the wife did was she sat down, and it almost makes me want to cry on air talking about this, but she pulled out the vacation journals from their trips. And they flipped through the pictures and read through the vacation journals of all the fun times that they had together right before he passed away. So don't underestimate the power of making memories. And we've said on the show before, Graham, the M&M money, the making memories money. That's important to build into your retirement plan and really take that to heart as parents, as grandparents. And then the other story I'll quickly share kind of on that note is sitting down with somebody just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and he was describing to me a health condition that he had in 2021, and the doctors had given him like an 8% chance to live. And so he made it, because obviously he's in my conference room yesterday, but he was just filled with joy. And you could see like he had this renewed sense of self, because, he's here and now he's getting married actually on Valentine's Day. And the thing that he told me is once he started to recover, he made a bucket list. I thought it was so cool, by the way. He made a bucket list item of all the things that he wanted to do from now. And he's still in the hospital, when this happened. And he said, Cris, I made this list of I forgot how many items he told me, but he said you could see my hand was still shaking when I was writing some of this because I was still in the hospital. Mm-hmm. But he made this bucket list of items that he now keeps, and he'll look at it from time to time and check off the things that he wanted to do that he's doing. And from time to time, he'll add another couple of things to the list that he wants to do. So all that to say, make memories while you can. Life is short. We don't ever know when God's going to call us home. And I was just really, I felt very blessed to be a part of those two situations that I got a chance to experience with a couple people in the past couple weeks here. So
love that story.
Yeah.
So guys, let's talk about diversifying income. Tell us what that looks like for someone who does want to protect all their essential expenses from things like inflation and market downturns.
Well, I think a good idea nowadays for people to consider, because first of all, let me start like this. Most people's retirement is going to last somewhere probably around 25 to 30 years. That's what I would say. I think probably the most risky portion of someone's retirement is probably that first 10 years into retirement. And I think sometimes building a strategy floor, from what we've observed, those that build a floor or, basically a reliable, predictable stream of income to pay for your necessary living expenses really helps gain that confidence and that feeling that a new retiree is looking for. Because again, I think the psychological, aspect of things, once you go from having a paycheck to no paycheck, the best thing you can do is create your sources of income to help you fulfill and pay for those monthly obligations, and doing that in a way that is predictable and without market risk will help as well. I think is a big thing to do. And once those essential needs are covered, well, then you have your other assets that you can have for further growth or, additional spending, like additional trips. And what this really does, building this floor of income, so to speak, is it really helps insulate you from like market swings. It'll also kind of calm down the emotions and things like that. So when we talk about diversifying income, it's almost like looking at it from a bucket strategy standpoint as well. So that little bucket is your kind of safe bucket that you're going to draw income off of to kind of help supplement maybe your pension, your Social Security, things like that. But that's the way I would look at it, Louann.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, so, the study we're looking at, so many people are feeling uncertain about how their retirement's going to go. How do you help clients map out a plan? Because this is what you do on a daily basis to create that reliable income they can count on for decades, since we're all living longer.
So I think that a big part of, looking at your, creating a map is kind of what we do in our process. So when somebody comes in, after that initial meeting, after our discovery session where we're collecting the information, kind of getting to know you, getting to know your situation, in the second meeting, we're going over a lot of information. And one of those things is our Rite Retirement Report Card. And in that, I think we have some really useful looks at your guaranteed income versus the income that you're going to have to generate from other sources, what the loss of income is if a spouse passes away early, how much you're going to have to pull from your portfolio to kind of sustain your living expenses. Because, as we know, one of the most powerful things that you can have is guaranteed income. So the folks out there, we have a lot of federal employee clients. They got pensions. Some state employees have pensions, teachers, but the majority of people not in a government position do not have a pension plan unless you're, I think Boeing and some other places might, but most people don't. So Social Security ends up being their other source. So what we end up having to look at is, alrighty, well, what does the Social Security look like? What does kind of that collecting strategy look like? And after that, what are you going to have to generate from your portfolio? And for a lot of people, honestly, it's probably a little bit less of a draw than they thought they were going to actually need to sustain their overall living expenses. But it is a very important thing to look at. So I think that is immensely valuable. And then when somebody's actually, going to retire and, we're looking at the best way to pull income, that's sort of the point where you have to figure out, all right, what are some sources that we're going to take the income from first? Do we spend down taxable money first? Do we try to keep income a little bit lower for conversions and things like that? Are there large expenses that need to get funded? And that's something that we map out from there. Because the thing with spending is it is very valuable to figure out what you need just on a monthly basis. But for most people, there's going to be some variable expenses in there too. I mean, things happen, you need a new roof, you need a new car, you go on a big vacation, you're helping out a family member. It can be a laundry list of different things that you don't necessarily plan on happening every single year, but kind of factors into your income situation too. So we try to look at all of that and give people an idea, of how that income is going to get to them, what they're going to get after taxes, where they should be pulling the income from, just to make them feel more confident and comfortable as they make that transition.
Mm-hmm. I think the first year also, in addition to the plan and the right card you talked about and the things that we do at the office, there's an element of, and we're not licensed counselors, so if compliance hears this or not, you're not a counselor. Yes, I know that. But sometimes that's the way that I feel. And sometimes there's some extra hand-holding and really just sitting with someone in that moment that they're feeling anxious and reassuring them that things are okay. And let's walk through the numbers again and let's look at your income. Because again, we talked a lot about the psychological things and developing a plan and really making that clear to the individual and the family, I think is just really, really important. And I think we do a really good job of that at the office. We've sat with so many people at this point where we've done it a lot. Like I've never retired myself, and really, frankly, most people only have the chance to really do it once. So you want to make sure you get it right the first time because you may not get a second time.
Right.
So basically, I think we do a good job at the office in doing it. I think we have a wonderful team of people, both male and female. I have 3 female certified financial planners on staff. Myself and Graham are certified financial planners as well. And sitting down with those individuals really gives them the confidence because they understand the credentials and just the way that we kind of work with people. I think we really do a good job with that. So I know sometimes there's females listening to the show and they're like, I really had a female advisor I could sit down with. Well, hey, give us a call. Like we got them. We got you covered. We got all, aspects and types at the office that can work with many, many different families. And we do that. We work with everybody from just, the regular old manufacturing guy like I used to be to the engineer to the scientist at NASA. We cover the full gamut when it comes to that. So if you want to set up a discovery session, a chance to come in and get to know us a little bit better, we would be honored to have you in the office. Our number is 256-937-2010. Again, give us a call to set up your discovery session, 256-937-2010. Hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week, and remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Graham Bauer holds the enrolled agent designation, but is not currently offering tax preparation services. Neither the firm nor its agents may give tax advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any purchasing decisions.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. WG Financial is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial. This radio show is a paid placement.